Well, hey there, folks. I'm Chris Burkhardt. I'm president and founder of Placers. I'm here with Brian Saleo. He's a lawyer. He's a consultant. He's a trainer. He's a good leader, and he oversees 100% of Placers customers, folks that hire one, folks that hire 1,000. Overall, we talk about being a coach to the workforce. If famous people like actors or sports fans can have them, then so should mere mortals. The world of work is really complicated more than ever, and folks need help navigating things like job search. And yes, we put them to work. And if it's complicated for workers, Brian, man, is it complicated for the businesses that we work with. And we spend a lot of time coaching them about what we call workforce and workplace issues, how to leverage talent, how to fill jobs. This is our series where we basically talk about the problems that we solve. Short form, but we get lots of questions, and this is us providing input on how we would solve different issues for customers. How you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing great. Weather's starting to turn around. Job market's coming back ablazing, so it's a good day.
I think we've been hearing and talking about the concept of a vaccine spring, and I do dare say today feels a bit like that. Optimism, like you're saying, the weather's a little bit better. You can get outside. We're not as, no cabin fever perhaps, but I agree. I think this is the beginning of things. And I think in our series, we will talk about what that means. Today, we had some very specific questions, and there's some irony in how you opened. Many businesses are expecting some expansion right now. And, this is sort of the notion that everybody is going to hire one employee. So today's focus is the problem of I need to hire one employee, but I'll give you different scenarios. So one that's a live one is I'm a not-for-profit. I survived. We've got enough funding to fulfill our mission, and we're hiring for our executive director. And the question really was, how do I approach this? What do I do? What are my options? What do you think, Brian? What would someone think about? And what do you think's best there?
So, it's a great question. It's one that we deal with quite a bit, and there are a lot of options. It really depends on, I think, the strategy you have around filling that position. You could bring in somebody on a contract basis and try them out. We love the temp to perm model here at Placers and every place I've worked, really, because it's like getting a test drive of the candidate that you might potentially be working with. For an executive director position, that's pretty important. It's the person that's going to guide every component of the business, and you don't want to get that hire wrong. So it's really key that you get that one right.
So let me interrupt you or interject. Sometimes people think of that concept of temporary to permanent or temporary, to hire, that's really only fitting for lower level roles. I think you're on to something that it applies very well for higher level roles. Are you seeing that trend? And what do I need to overcome to get people to think that way?
So I am seeing that trend, largely due to the uncertainty of what's going on in the world. You don't necessarily know. We all have the good feeling that we're going to be in a better place in a few months, in terms of the vaccine and the world in general. But there is that uncertainty out there. So we are seeing it. If you're an employer, one of the things you have to think about is, are you going to be able to attract the talent that you're looking for if you're only offering the position initially as contract? Because the challenge there is, if somebody's in a role currently and they're working, not a contract, they're working directly for the company, it's a tough decision to make to leave a job like that for something that is contract, because it may not last. It might not work out. That being said, a direct hire position might also not work out. So you definitely need to think about that. I still think, really being careful in how you're screening the candidates, making sure that you have the right people on your team assembled to do the interviewing. I think the cost of a bad hire is too much to make a mistake on something like that, especially for something that's so critical to an organization.
It's really interesting too. If you think about many executive level roles, executive director in a large not-for-profit, it may be a situation that the skill sets, the competencies that you need to, say, do the turnaround or get it back on its feet may be very different than once things are stable and you're managing something different. That's really hard for an employer or a board to hear, but it is true that skill sets change based on the situation. And that might be, I know it wasn't your original intent, but if you use a contractor or temporary or temp to hire scenario in the beginning, you find those skills to help get it back. And then maybe you're hiring directly once things are turned around. And I've heard that from the not-for-profit industry a lot, that would be ideal.
You know, it's a great way, to solve your problems immediately and long-term by bringing in somebody who's almost like a consultant. You know, I've seen a couple of nonprofits do that, where, maybe you get somebody who's worked in the nonprofit arena for quite a while. You bring that person in as a consultant, and that person really can lay out the framework for what that executive director is going to be. And maybe they ultimately become that person, or maybe they're the one that really just lays out, here are the key responsibilities. Let's have a tight job description. Let's make sure we have the right process for hiring, make sure the right people are involved. So a consulting type of opportunity might be the way to go.
And just to clarify, temp, contract, consulting, are they all the same thing? Are they different? Is it just the vernacular that we use with different candidates? What's your thoughts?
So technically they're different, but we do use them interchangeably sometimes.
Yeah.
I tend to think of a consultant usually is going to be a 1099 or somebody who owns their own business and does it through a corporation. Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, those people either have a long track record of doing what it is you're looking for, or maybe consulting is the way they do things, kind of as a gig from thing to thing. A temp, really, I guess in my mind, is somebody working through a staffing agency, and then the idea becomes, is this a temporary worker because we have a short-term need, or is it temporary because we want to try them out, see how it worked out? So that's more of a temp. And then contractor kind of could be either one. That's more of a generic term.
Thank you for that primer. I think it's important. So the second scenario, and it's something we're seeing a lot, and so there's a lot of inquiries with organizations that kind of found sales to not work. So they didn't replace people that left the business, or maybe they cut back on sales. So a lot of people are thinking about adding back a salesperson, a business development human.
Yeah.
What do you think someone should be doing if they want to hire one salesperson today?
Whew. So sales is tough, particularly in this environment. I've seen some articles recently that talk about how much more difficult it is in a remote world to be in the sales profession. It's also hard for employers because when you're not seeing the person day to day, you're a little bit more removed from them. You really have to measure them by results and results only. You can't see activity and know that, maybe they're doing something wrong, or there's a reason why they might struggle or whatever. So I think managing a remote sales force is probably one of the biggest challenges we face right now.
Yeah.
I think a direct hire and bringing on a staffing firm that can do an engaged search is probably the best for that, because with the engaged search, that by paying a little bit up front to the staffing firm, that they're going to commit to filling that role. It's going to be a top priority for them. You can refer talent to them, and they can help screen and make recommendations to you. The staffing firm really is a consultant to the business, where we would tell the customer, here's what we would suggest for an interview process. Here's what we would suggest for who should be involved, shaping the right job description, all those kinds of things. I think for a salesperson, something like that is really the best bet. Because again, it's a tough search, and part of their income's variable, so that adds different challenges in terms of what target area you're really looking for. There's a lot of challenges that go with sales searches.
Yeah, there's a lot in what you said. I'm hearing you say the concept of an engaged search, in that there's a commitment on both sides of both the staffing firm and the customer. Mm-hmm. And my assumption is that keeps the staffing firm committed. The other option is if they were purely in a contingent relationship, like when your realtor sells your home,
right?
That if it's a really hard search, they're not going to stay focused on it.
Yeah.
We go. And I think that to be true. I think that's an old wives' tale. There are plenty of good firms that do contingent, but I like your idea of engaged because it gets the commitment of the firm. They're focused. And folks, I think that results are more probable in that kind of outcome. One of the things that I've seen about just the field of business development, that it's not unlike a lot of the fields that were hurt. Hospitality, restaurant workers, those that work in the hotel field. There's article after article of where these folks have upskilled themselves and are in new careers. Mm-hmm. Do you have a sense of whether that happened in business development and sales as well? I feel like it has.
Yeah.
I just want to get your perspective.
Yeah. So I think, there's a lot of sales courses out there. I've seen colleges offering free courses that include sales as something. So it's something where if you have that right personality, you have the drive, and particularly if you have a certain expertise in a field, companies are going to really start focus on bringing in sales. I think sales is kind of the first group of people to go when things tighten up, and they're the first people to get brought back when things start turning around. And if you don't sell something, for most companies, you don't have much of a basis for success. I mean, we're all selling in some way. So if you don't have a strong sales team, you're stuck. So definitely see that coming back. Definitely see the challenges that are involved. But there are a lot of people out there that took this time, to realign their career, to find maybe a different path that they want to follow. So I do think we're going to see a lot of activity in the sales hiring.
And so far in the discussions, they are looking for X years of experience and certain levels of success and backgrounds and those things. And in a lot of those dialogues, I know our team has asked them questions. Would you consider an entry-level candidate? Would you consider somebody that's a culture fit? And that's all live. I don't think there's an answer yet to it, other than that it's not necessarily going to be easy to find a multiple year successful salesperson, considering for the last 12 months we've been in a pandemic. It just might not be possible. So in the spirit of that, the third skill set, if I need to hire one, is the other one that every business is thinking about as we kind of come back to work, whether it's hybrid or all in. And we've heard it a lot in the last 10 days, Brian. It's like, what are my best options to staff the front desk, the receptionist, the switchboard operator, the admin assistant? Talk a little bit about what you think based on the world we live in today. What approach might a business take?
So the front desk person is the person that is going to be the first face that your customers, your employees, your vendors, whoever's coming into your building is going to see. They represent you. They are in all ways the first impression that impacts any relationship that starts off in person. we haven't been a whole lot of in person for the last 9 months, right? Or year.
Sure have.
Holy cow! You're coming up on a year.
I think it's a year tomorrow when the CDC announced that it was officially a pandemic.
Yes. So crazy. But that front desk person is so key. And I know, just as a customer, when I walk into an establishment, the person that says hello to me, or how can I help you, it makes a big impact. First impressions last, and I can tell you, I certainly remember the ones that don't impress me, don't seem like they care, don't seem interested in the fact that I just walked in the door. So sometimes it doesn't matter how great the rest of your team is. If that position is filled by somebody who's not up to snuff, it can really be a detrimental thing for your business. Are you
seeing organizations staff this part-time, full-time? Are they using temporary workers, hiring direct? What trends do you see?
So I think now that we are starting to come back, I think starting to be more direct. I think it was definitely a lot of temp over and part-time over the course of the last year, just because there was less of a need for a front desk person. But it's such a key position that we are seeing a lot of it in direct, and that doesn't really surprise me.
I tend to agree with you. And I was reading today, so that the number of workers that were displaced due to childcare through this pandemic. So it is disproportionate to women, but it's 2.4 million women had to exit the workforce because they have kids under a certain age.
Right.
2.4 million, but 1.7 million age-appropriate men were displaced with that as well. It's a very large number.
Yep.
Kind of like the curveball, knuckleball question. When do those 4 to 5 million people start to come back to work, Brian?
Whew. I think the vaccine distribution has a lot to do with that.
Kids getting back to school.
People being less afraid to go out. Some of the incentives in lower level positions. I mean, you can make, if you're making, I think it's $23 an hour or less, in some cases, it's more profitable to stay home, which is a horrible thing to think about.
And it's certainly not the intent of that. The intent is to help people that need it.
Right. So, the workforce is going to start coming back, and I think it's going to be proportionate. I think men, women, all different types of roles. I think all of that's going to come back. April, May, June, when we're all starting to get vaccinated and things are getting a little bit more back to normal. I think we'll be there. All
right. So, theme today is hiring one. Maybe you and I can add any other, our last and final on if we're looking for one, what your best advice would be. I'll go first, give you a little time to think about it. I think if you're a small to mid-sized business and you've got an active community, suppliers, vendors, folks that have easy access, one thing I'd recommend today, if you're looking for one role for your business, is to let those suppliers, vendors, and that community know that you're looking. I think, it's always good to do it first within the family, within the business. Obviously, we're a staffing firm, but our goal is to add value where we can. And a lot of times when somebody needs one, it's easier to do it within the family. So that would be one idea. How about you? If you had one opening, what bit of advice might you give a small to mid-sized firm?
Take your time. I love the expression that if you rush to do something now, when will you have time to do it right the next time? So, the cost of hiring somebody that doesn't work out, the training time that goes into that, the productivity effects that occur because of that can be dramatic. And with all of these positions we've talked about today, these are pretty critical roles in an organization. You don't want to get it wrong. You certainly don't want to hire the wrong person. So I would say take your time. Make sure your job descriptions and your scorecard for that position are tight. Make sure you've got a solid idea of just a profile of what the person's going to be like that you're looking to fill that role. Make sure you have engagement of your team that's going to be helping you select, and just take your time, make the right decision.
I think that is superb advice, because we all have a sense of urgency, of opportunity. And, many folks that we have in mind with these questions are probably doing these jobs themselves or are responsible for these outcomes. So they want to get them filled because they can get on to the next project and the next hire, the next thing. But that's really good counsel, because without all that, you're going to be right back next week to what do I do when I hired somebody for a week and I need to replace them?
Yeah. And, I'll also give the opposite answer. When you find somebody that you like, go with your gut and make that decision. One of the things that drives me crazy when customers say this is, I'd like to see 2 or 3 more people. This person was amazing, but I'd like to see 2 or 3 more people. Well, if that person's amazing in your judgment and you know your business better than anybody else, be careful you don't lose them by taking that extra time. So,
and lots of folks have.
Yeah.
So that's very good advice, because I think sometimes supervisors, managers, executives, we're taught to look at a docket or slate of talent and never make a decision on one. But I think what I'm hearing, Brian, is the market is tight. And if you found the one is all it takes.
Yes.
All right.
When I found Ben & Jerry's cookie dough ice cream, Chris, I didn't need to try the other kinds of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I love the cookie dough.
So you've just tied Ben & Jerry's ice cream to hiring, and I love it. So thank you. This concludes today Problems We Solve. I'm Chris. You are
Brian Saleo.
There you go.